I'm not sure if I'm gonna post this or not. I've recorded a few things lately with my little magnet, which I'll post at some point, and I'm gonna cut out a lot. I got an hour or so I'm gonna cut out from that, but anyway, yeah, maybe I'll post this, maybe I won't, but it's good to talk. So I'm fired up. I'm fired up. Because I was watching a little bit of the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearings today. And I get, even though I have a little bit of insight into politicking, like, I still get really worked up by the whole politic deal and the politicking deal. And today the big thing was the ACA, what is it, the Affordable Care Act, right? And how Amy Barrett was gonna, repeal the Affordable Care Act. But and that gets people worked up, like, you're gonna make it unaffordable. But affordable is a very ambiguous word. And you could be on one side or the other of affordable and be against it. Also, it's notable, as it was mentioned today at the hearing, that she would be the only person not from Harvard or Yale. How have they treated us? Us. How has Harvard and Yale treated us? Well, in a lot of ways, really great, right? But in a lot of ways, maybe not. And that she's from Notre Dame. Now, think about Catholics, right? I've said this before, and it's really interesting. Right, what is it? Max Weber and the Protestant work ethic. Everything's so fucked up because the whole idea of Protestantism is like, give the people the word directly. It's kind of a St. Paul type deal. In so much as preaching to the Gentiles, right? But then on the other side is the St. Peter idea of like, no. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, not no. But like, Peter preached to the Jews, Paul preached to the Gentiles. But like, not all there's like something like 30,000 registered Christian religions. But so Protestantism it's pretty big. And then what about what is it, Anglicanism? Is Anglicanism Protestantism or Catholicism? And what about what is it the Jewish Christians, the Christians who observe the Jewish traditions. What are they called? I'm having a brain fart. But like, there's so many different ways to go about it. But what I will say, and I've said before, is that like, who feeds the poor? The Catholics and the communists. These days, I remember I repainted a Catholic church, like the interior of a Catholic church, 10 years ago. 10 fucking years ago. Seems like yesterday. I remember it was Palm Sunday when we quote unquote reopened the church because they had to like have their services in the basement while we were painting. I'm not Catholic. I have no plans to be. I remember I asked the priest one time, he said like, oh, blah, 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 got any questions? It was just like in passing, because I was there for months, and I was like, I asked him about the Passion of the Christ, It's like, what's that about? Like, why do they, And he was like, oh, this or that, died for the sins, normal hubbub, you know. And I was like, yeah, but why do they call it passion? Anyway, he didn't really have a sufficient answer, even though I know he's a really deep dude, and maybe he was just like, I don't have, you know, to my mind at the time, I was thinking like, oh, he's blowing me off, he's fucking with me, he doesn't know, fuck him, you know. But now I'm realizing like, well, maybe he really did know, and maybe he just didn't have the 20 years to tell me about it, you know. Could be one way or the other, but anyway, you know, while we were painting there, like, they held their services in the basement. They were in the basement, you know, because they had their services, well, throughout the week, you know, but certainly the weekend services they held in the basement. And then when we reopened the church after repainting the whole thing, we restained a bunch of the pews and like took them out to our shop and sprayed them this, that, whatever. They put in a new carpet, blah blah blah. It's a pretty big church, Sacred Heart Church, and you know, repainted everything, blah blah blah. Did a little bit of structure. Well, I wouldn't say structural, but added a few components and so on. And that was a big part of our winter work for that year back. It was when I turned 33. I think I'm 43 now, right? 40. I'm 43. Yeah. So it was 10 years ago. It was Palm Sunday. 10 years ago. And anyway, while I was there, I just remember like they had free meals all the time. And when they didn't have free meals, they had like posts up of where the free meals were. It's like this whole community of free meals for homeless people, struggling people, and I don't know if people realize this, there's still a pilgrimage, you know. I remember one of the most important books of my young adulthood was The Way of the Pilgrim. I read it at about the same time I was reading Artie Lang, Milan Kundera, Terry Goodkind, Carlos Castaneda, and I was just starting to get into other philosophy. Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, Kierkegaard, primarily. Not in depth, but to a degree. But anyway, the people who had nowhere to go had that big old church basement to go to get some food. The church, in that sense, was providing where the government did not. Where the will of the collective people failed, the will of a selective people succeeded. But they were not the only selective will of the people, because there was also the listen center, which is just like whoever, you know. And what I saw, because I just saw the people there, but I also saw the posts that the church put up saying, you know, meals aren't here today, they're over here or wherever. So there's all these communities. So you have these more or less democratic, socialist centers giving free meals, coordinating with the Catholic centers, right? And Catholic really cuts that line between conservative and Democrat. But then you also had strictly conservative places, strictly liberal places. And I don't know, to me the Catholic Church, and I'm, like I said, I'm not Catholic, and I got, you know, there's a lot of beef, the whole deal with the Catholic Church, all that shit, you know, I'm totally down with that. I'm just saying that the good folk there did that. you know? So then when you look outside the political system, there's this structure that exists to help people. And I remember one time I saw what clearly to me looked like a homeless woman with her dog, and I went to buy some like food for her and her dog. So I bought some like Alpo. I bought her some because I was at it's a convenience store with a Chinese food place. Because that's where I was at getting gas and shit. But like, it's actually one of the best Chinese food places around. So I bought some egg rolls and I bought some this, that, whatever. Bought some Coke, bought some water, bought some dog food. Lady didn't want the she didn't want the Chinese food. She didn't want the Coke. I think she took the water and the dog food, even though like the dog food wasn't good enough for her dog. But she said she might be able to trade it. I think that's how it went. You know, I have a really bad memory, but I talked to her for quite a while, and after I gave her that, she gave me she had a bunch of film. Apparently, she liked to take pictures, so she gave me a roll of film, which I later developed because she said that one of the rules of the road is that you got to have a fair trade. But anyway, while we were talking, this other like quote unquote homeless dude was walking by and was like, hey, he obviously knew this lady. He'd seen her around. You know, and he's like, hey, I was just at the blah, 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 and I got some extra food. Do you want it? And she was like, no, I was at the blah, blah, blah. Like, there's still this pilgrimage trail. There's still this pilgrimage trail. So yeah, like I was saying before, one of the books that really hit me when I was younger was The Way of the Pilgrim, which was written anonymously, I think in the 1300s. Don't quote me on that. I got it from a book club, which I never paid the bill on. I got a bunch of free books. I got one on like Martin Luther King Jr. I got one on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I got one on Hitler. And I got this book, The Way of the Pilgrim. There was like 6 others. I think I got like 10 free books I never paid for. Thank you, book club. But anyway, today, all right, am I getting it right? 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 Because talking about this, talking about that. Today I listened to the Iamblichus book. The Iamblichus. He was right around. The thing with Iamblichus is that he was right around the whole deal with Constantine. To those who aren't familiar, it's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And to those who are, you're going to be like, you're getting it all wrong. But either way, just bear with me. You know? Super important. Iamblichus. I-A-M-B. Capital I looks like an L. Lamb. He existed contemporaneously with Saint Agnes, whose symbol is the lamb. Saint Agnes. Who is Saint Agnes? Real quick. Young girl. Lived with, however you want to call it, Roman. They call her Saint Agnes of Rome. I'm not so sure she's from Rome, but Saint Agnes of Rome, all the quote-unquote pagan gods, blah, blah, blah. And one of her slave girls was praying, and she was like, what are you doing? And it depends on what source. There was the book, The Golden Legend. It was a huge deal. Back in 13, 14, 15, 16, 1700s, The Golden Legend. Huge book. Big deal. So that account of St. Agnes was like really, really popular. That relates back to Raphael and the papal apartments painted at the turn of the, 15th, 16th century, 1500s, right? But Iamblichus. Iamblichus was contemporaneous with St. Agnes and Constantine. Super big deal. And the fact that IAMB looks like LAMB, and the lamb is the symbol of St. Agnes. Super big deal. And the whole deal with Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea gets harshed on, right? So that was the first big Bible deal, Council of Nicaea. The second big Bible deal, now, never mind, well, St. Jerome, whole different thing, Hieronymus, which is Jerome. We'll get to that later. Second big Bible deal was King James Bible. All this shit about King James, about murdering his mom, about having a gay lover, blah, blah, blah. That's all just the intrigue to suck you into the story, to the truth. King James, in his original Bible, in his original publication of the Bible, included the Apocrypha, which was excluded by the Oxford version of the King James Bible, which is the King James Bible that we commonly are ascribed to. Maybe some people, are kind of down with that, right? But anyway, the whole deal today with the Amy Coney Barrett, Barrett, deal is that everybody's Affordable Care Act, even though what everybody really knows the whole deal talking about is abortion, right? But affordable can be two things. You can oppose to affordability in two different ways. Affordability can be opposed to as inaffordable, right? Like, I can't afford it? Fuck! That means I'm gonna die! The other way of opposing affordable is like, no, we're gonna take care of you no matter what. No one left behind, right? It's like that's the one thing the Marines got definitely right. I'm not saying they only got one thing right, but like, no one left behind. No one. People criticize the whole no child left behind thing with Bush. I'm not talking about it like that way. I'm not talking about it politically. I'm talking about like one-on-one, human to human. Man to man, woman to woman, man to woman. Ha man to ha man to ha woman, man to man. Right? Like, no one left behind. That's awesome. Now, do I aspire to that? Yes. Am I there? No. I'm a boozer. I'm wrong. I don't have it right. But I still aspire to what is right, and I will until the day I die. Period. And when I say I aspire, like, what's the difference between, how do we aspire up here versus how we aspire here, Do I aspire well? No. I'm a miserable failure at aspiration. But I aspire. I will never aspire to anything else. I will only aspire badly toward this one thing until I aspire well or die. That's it. And at the very least, that's the story I tell myself. So yeah, like, watching that hearing today, like, the difference between politicking and the law, right? My supposition, it's a conjecture. I wouldn't say, it's definitely not a prophecy, but it's a conjecture. After she's confirmed, watch her uphold laws that benefit the greater good. Watch it happen. Not and not because she's Catholic, not because she's nominated by a Republican, but because who she is and what she's really about. Politicking is less than law, and what happened today on the TV or on my YouTube was politicking. The law is something else, the written law. But the real law is to the written law as the written law is to politicking. And what I'm saying is, yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. And not just her, because I'd say, had it been this time at a different time, I'll be saying the same thing in a few years when Biden's president or Harris is president or whoever is president. The politicking, I fucking hate. And a lot of the legalese I hate. But when someone of the spoken word, someone of the living law, the eternal law, it's kind of like the difference between like sophistry and rhetoric, right? Like a sophist who's only concerned with their own power, right? Sophistry is actually moot. A moo point. Rhetoric is a moo point, right? But someone who is good can employ rhetoric and sophistry. Someone who's truly good can employ rhetoric and sophistry, can employ sophistry against itself, right? So despite her, she doesn't have a drawl, she has a twang. I won't lie. I find it aesthetically displeasing. But I believe she is a good person. And I believe that she will surprise us in the future with her rulings. The thing they didn't talk about, so like I said, affordable can be opposed to in two different ways. They say she's opposed to the Affordable Care Act. People are against that because they think she's going to make it unaffordable. I'm saying that she will be someone in the future who upholds like a universal care act, so to speak. Taking care of everyone. She's a Catholic from Notre Dame, man. The fucking fighting Irish. The fighting Irish, man. Everybody in America knows the whole fucking gig against when it comes to Irish versus Great Britain, right? Who are the Irish for? They're for their peeps. And if you're an Irish American, who you for? You're for your fucking peeps, man. That's it. So that's my call on it. I might be wrong, but feeling pretty good about it. There's two ways to fight the word affordable, because it's in the middle. And the people are harshing on it, politicizing harsh on it, are politicizing on the wrong side of what I say in the future she will call upon. Not to mention, when legislatures fight the judiciary that hard, it speaks to two things. It speaks to the weakness of the legislature, and it speaks to the weakness of the people. It speaks to the weakness of the legislature as a representation of the people. So when the legislature protests and the people protest, that's a call from the judiciary saying, yo bitches in the legislature legislate. And when the legislature protests, it's saying to the people, yo people, wake the fuck up, empower us to empower us to legislate, which means write the laws that the court upholds and the executive branch enforces, so to speak. I mean, I'm a fucking house painter, man. Give me a break, you know? But that's kind of how it goes. You know? Now, the thing that they didn't talk about, but they're probably going to talk about, and which they're talking about in code, and they're talking about the ACA, is fucking women's right to choose. For me, I'm a dude. You know? This is going to come back to Iamblichus and Pythagoras, but though I did just learn today that Iamblichus also was kind of definitively describes in a way that can be better understood Aristotle's description of the soul. My understanding from today is that Iamblichus kind of like settles the deal. So if you're trying to interpret Aristotle's description of the soul, read Iamblichus. So I'm gonna. I just started today listening to the audiobook of Iamblichus's Pythagoras. I've been into Iamblichus for a little bit. I've been starting to research him for a few weeks, a month, but anyway, the whole deal with abortion, for me, it boils down to this. The one reason, the absolute one reason, slam down, and it actually might be different now with surveillance, which is one of the reasons why abortion might be overturned, has something to do with surveillance and being watched all the time, is that because the number one reason, the absolute, to my mind, number one reason that abortion should be legal is because legal abortion prevents old men who either rape or older men who or younger, but primarily older men who rape or seduce younger women into their beds, right? And impregnate them, will then murder them to protect their reputation. There's an old man. He rapes a younger girl. He has prestige in his community, in his society. He has a position. He has a wife. He has a family. He impregnates a younger girl, and then he finds out she's pregnant and he murders her. This has happened throughout history. It's one of the worst things that has happened in history. It's tied for first place for the worst thing that's happened in history over and 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 over again. It's one of the things that has necessitated secret societies of women, who are the true secret societies of secret societies, the ones you've never fucking heard about. You've heard about all these other secret societies that aren't secret, because you heard about them. So anyway, to my mind, that's the number one reason for pro-choice. I will say that on a higher level, the philosophical ideal, despite my own history of sexual, what would you call it, depravity. Despite my own past of sexual depravity, it's easy for me to say, don't do it, but I'm saying, trust me, you'll regret it, and I can't even tell you why right now. I've alluded to in past videos, don't do it. You will feel bad. You will. For reasons you can't even begin to imagine yet. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But I'm definitely beating around the bush on this one. You don't know who you're sleeping with, let's put it that way. I didn't. Having that said, it's more nuanced than that, and there are people who come into our lives, and at first we might find it lovely, and then later not so much, and then later we might discern a betrayal, and then later still we might discern a lesson. Anyway, well, it's still hard for me. It's so hard for me to work through this. But it makes sense to me that we should aspire to a quote-unquote pro-life world. But that's not the world we live in. And pro-choice shouldn't necessarily be like, it's my body, I do what I want with it. You know, because like when I'm convulsing in my bed in hospice with IVs hooked up to me in a colostomy bag and so on, like, is it my body then? And am I free to do what I want with it? Or am I free to accept what those who know what to do with bodies do to me? Right? Or you. And do I live up to that? No, I don't. I'm trying to convince myself. Like, listen, like, do the right things. Like, the Essene gospel of peace. Like, do that. You know, like, the lessons of Iamblichus and Pythagoras. Yeah, do that. You know. Like, do those things. And I'm not there yet. So, as it seems I'm trying to convince you of something that I've achieved, trust me when I tell you I'm trying to convince myself to achieve something that I believe. Because I'm not at the stage of belief or knowledge. I am at the stage of faith. But there's faith, hope, and love. And I'm not quite so much in the hope and love camp as I am in the faith camp. And I've said it before, but it's worth noting again that, yeah, the gift of faith, or faith in general, I can understand where it gets you there, but to my mind, so far, the gift of faith is, you're fucked, you're doing the wrong thing, you don't understand, you're getting beat down by every fucking demon, bad thought, every irrational, depends what you mean by irrational, thought in existence. You have nothing to stand on. You have no foundation. That's the gift of faith. Why? Because you survive. If you didn't have the gift of faith, and you're as much of a fuck up as me, you'd be dead. If I didn't have the gift of faith, I'd already be dead. You probably wouldn't believe me, but that's actually true. I have the gift of faith, and I'm not very appreciative of it, even though it came from fucking God. And I don't mean like kind of. That's why God gave it to me. Because God knows I'm that much of a bitch. Alright. Yeah, the whole idea with, once again, I don't know if I have the emotional wherewithal to get through this. But I had an idea before I pressed that record button, so I'm going to try to get there. Because when Iamblichus was describing Pythagoras, I've heard a lot about Pythagoras over the last, 2009, what's it, 2020? So over the last 11 years, I've heard a lot about Pythagoras. A little bit before that, but But today, I finally, and it took all those years to figure out the importance of Iamblichus as one of the students of Plotinus. And what I learned today, too, about Plotinus was where Plotinus was like among the first of traditions. And it's weird because everything's so encoded in such a way. And also, when anybody's ever talking about philosophy, they're always talking about math. They're always talking about geometry. Philosophy, true philosophy, certainly Greek philosophy, is always talking about math. But it was more efficient for them to write in certain ways. Same with like all that Coptic text. The Coptic text, what they call Babylonian text, which isn't really Babylonian, Mesopotamian, but whatever, Coptic, the little notches. Like, it was shorthand for geometry. But if you knew what the shorthand symbolized, you could figure out the geometry. It's the same with Greek philosophy. Because certain concepts, certain humane concepts, humanitarian concepts, the humanities were associated, right? And it's like, when I was reading today on Wikipedia about how some famous 1870s, whatever, Greek Heraclitean scholar was saying how the logos of Heraclitus wasn't the same as the logos of John. And, the word, in the beginning was the word, in the beginning was the logos, and the logos of Heraclitus weren't the same thing. No. Well, Heraclitus was considered an Ionian philosopher. It has to do with Ionian columns and the fact that the Ionian columns have the stripes all the way up and down. I'll get back to that at another point and how that ties into it, but no. It absolutely had everything to do with the same thing. Why? And that's what comes back to Constantine, Saint Agnes, and Iamblichus. As contemporaneous, they lived at the same time. They were about the same time, at least mythologically, or at least historically, or at least mytho-historically, or historymythologically, right? Like Constantinople, and they say it was, like I said, Agnes of Rome. Well, which Rome? The whole Fertile Crescent, Turkey, Caspian Sea, Red Sea, Arabian Peninsula of 300 AD, more or less, give or take. So it goes from Heraclitus, who was born in Ephesus, on the what I get tough with the east and the west, right? So that would be the western side of Turkey, which was at that time the eastern side of the Grecian Empire, kinda. It's all mismatched, right? The Mediterranean Sea at 300 AD, man, fucking forget about it. But basically, Iamblichus, Saint Agnes, and other people who are more learned, who actually know shit, different histories, would say it differently. But me, from my place in the world, what? My place don't matter? My place don't count? Well, I'm completely fucked. So are they in a different way. I'm fucked my way, you know? And until I'm completely enlightened, or however you want to say it, I'm gonna fail on it. And then what would I do when I were completely enlightened? How would I say it? Would I speak enlightenedly? Has anyone ever spoken to you that actually lit the dome instantaneously, right? Until you can light the dome of someone else instantaneously, you're fucking wrong. So I'm fucking wrong in my way. They were fucking wrong in their way. I'm right in my way. They're right in their way. Okay. Now, mostly what I like to say is they're right in their way. I'm right in my way. So let's come together. But basically, like, Greek philosophy died. It more or less started about with Heraclitus in Ephesus in Turkey. And not very far away, it died in Constantinople with Constantine. Not very far away from Iamblichus in Syria. Not very far away from Agnes of Rome, who I don't really think was in Rome. That time period killed Greek philosophy. That was the end. Started with Heraclitus, died with Iamblichus. More or less. Give or take. I mean, that's a pretty good one sentence synopsis. I mean, I wouldn't say I challenge you, but I'd say you'd be hard pressed to come up with a better one sentence synopsis. Started with Heraclitus, died with Iamblichus. Contemporaneous with the rise of Christianity. Now, I understand Christianity came from elsewhere. The Magi, more or less, the three Magi, they more or less sanctified Christ as Christ. Without the three Magi, not so sure this whole thing would ever happen, For real. And the important part about Christianity is that Thomas the Doubter, who everybody poops on, was the dude who went back east where the Magi came from to destroy the caste system that the Magi were rebelling against. The Magi rebelled against the caste system. Hinduism, beautiful religion. Now, the truth is the caste system is real, spiritually, but politically is poisonous. The political caste system is a poison upon the world. Very, 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 very bad. The political caste system is very, very bad. But there is a spiritual caste system. What's that mean? It means that there are those above us who have breached thresholds, and those thresholds are harmonic and they're exponential. And there are people who know so much more than us that it's incomprehensible to understand anything that they understand, right? And they are very fair and good people. And they're so wise that we might call them gods. Those who have corrupted the caste system are the ones who raise themselves up as gods. They're out there. You think it's all mythology. It's not. They're out there. But what the bad magi, with the bad magicians, with the bad rhetoricians and sophists, what the bad scientists don't understand. I don't know a lot, but I do know this. Like, the truth of love cannot be superseded. Like, it's not just some philosophical or poetic point. It's a mathematical truth. It has a shape. Like, it has a shape in sound. It has a shape in the harmonics of the body's biorhythm, in the harmonics I guess we'll leave it at the body's biorhythm. But that encompasses a lot. Beyond digital synapses. Stuart Hameroff, Roger Penrose, microtubules. But probably even beyond that. So it's orders of magnitude beyond orders of magnitude. Anyway, Iamblichus describes how Pythagoras, which, especially considering at that time period, the way it collapses upon Jesus, the way they both talked in parables, how they had apostles and disciples and followers, and so on and so forth. Like, there's all these different levels. And Iamblichus describes, and I'm going to have to break it down. This one I think I actually will break down. Sometimes I say I got to break shit down, and I never do. But then again, it takes years and years. But like the different types of students of Pythagoras, and like what was afforded to each different type. And there's a lot of distinctions. And what was allowed in each class. And one of the things I'd remark on is because Pythagoras was a vegetarian, and he, his most exalted students who would become most like him, were not permitted to eat meat of animals, And this came up over and over again, but it did come up a couple times. That some of the lesser followers could make sacrifices of animals. And so some might say, like, oh, he was a hypocrite, or oh, he was this or that, or oh, you say he was a vegetarian, or you say he was this or that, but he wasn't this or that, whatever. But we're looking back at that time period, man. And that time period was murderous as shit. People were fucking killing other people. People were sacrificing and eating other people back then. The science of that, and then that's not some conspiracy weirdo wacko shit. The science of that is increasingly coming up. Certainly happened in the Americas, fucking Mexico City, and the way that spread up into the Midwest or the West, and I know Spain. I know there's some shit coming up in the archaeology in Spain about that shit having happened. And of course, we're gonna find that it came up all over the world. Never mind all the other types of human sacrifice and the, lines in the Colosseums, all that shit. And it wasn't just shit people did. It was fucking magic, man. Has anything weird ever happened to you? Have you ever had some sort of insight? You know what I'm saying? Like, people are into this shit, right? Like, quote unquote magic's real. And it's magic so long as we don't understand it. The whole idea with Pythagoras is that he understood it. And the whole idea with Jesus is that he understood it. And that comes into the shit I didn't talk about last time. Man, I hope I got time for this. That I didn't talk about last time, which I was trying to get to, and then, well, I had enough memory, but that time my battery cut out, but is like good and bad sorcery. The difference between forever and eternity. The difference between the castaneted old sorcerers and new ones. And it depends what lineage of thought you're speaking of, because in some lineages of thought, the word sorcerer is a really bad word. It means different things, right? And then, sometimes when you say the word occult, or you say the word sorcery, or you say the word magic, it means the same thing. But in other contexts, they mean very different things. Where occult can mean some sort of material manipulation of objects that actually has a physical force. Like a generator, like a Tesla coil. That might be considered occult magic. Especially if it not only affects, right? Because if you think of a Tesla coil as something that just put some electricity through the fucking air or through your fucking power lines, that's one thing, to power your phone. But if you think about the way it actually affects your soul, and it depends what you mean by soul, right? And that's another thing, like soul. Some people say soul, they mean one thing. Some people say soul, they mean another thing. But there are very clear distinctions depending on your tradition. I don't have a tradition. So what I have to rely on is the different things I read and the way that those certain words magnetize to me. Certain things that have happened to me. Certain real experiences that I've had, which, to my understanding, is where, again, Plotinus, as the predecessor of Iamblichus, Neoplatonism, so Iamblichus in that sense is like a minor figure in Neoplatonism, yet maybe he's actually the culmination. He did have, Porphyry? I think Proclus Porphyry, and Plotinus had a certain, Iamblichus was more into theurgy, which to my mind is like the software of spirits. And to my mind, that's where the whole Holy Spirit comes in, where it's like, it's the operating system. Whereas if you're into other spirits, or demonology, or daemonology, there are demons, there are other things, there are spirits, there are other forms of being, there are other centers of consciousness, there are other centers of awareness, there are other centers of identity, of individuality. There are disembodied egos in that sense, right? That's theurgy. That whole paragraph was theurgy. That's it. I mean, I'm not saying that's it. I'm just saying if you can relate to that even poetically, then you understand the concept of theurgy, right? But it's real. There are shapes. So the whole benefit of the Holy Spirit, of the God, right? You know, like Heraclitus, he said, like, God, no God, no God, wasn't any God, no man created this world. Yet he spoke of God. Right? The Holy Spirit, the God of gods, the real deal. So we can hit our chakras, we can light this up, that up, whatever. But if it ain't full and real, and that's my apprehension, I ain't lit up. I've had experiences. I've seen through the veil. Fully once. I've interacted with the veil, you know, in ways that I could describe probably 20 times. I've seen through the veil once. I've broken through the veil once in a different way. I guess I'll talk about that in other times later. But the veil looks a lot like, and you can see it in different ways. The veil looks a lot like wood grain. Somewhere between wood grain and, if you watch the Disney movie, and it's elsewhere, but if you watch the Disney movie Frog Prince or whatever, like the voodoo dude, like the faces in that, when the voodoo dude's talking to his like voodoo spirits or whatever, that's what the veil can look like. But all those spirits that he's interacting with aren't the spirits beyond the veil. They're the spirits of the veil. The veil's infinite. The veil is as infinite as the universe. But if you react to the veil at all, you're just looking into yourself. You're not seeing past it. It can look happy. It can look laughing. It can look angry. There's a motivational force behind those emotions that in some sense are external to your own ego. They're not friendly. They're not your friend. Even if they look happy, they're not your friend. If it's that two-dimensional, wood grain, frog prince-like veil that you're interacting with, like, in one sense you've achieved something because you've started to see beyond the pale to the veil. But and I can only speak to it because I've only done it once. But I saw beyond it. And what I saw, well, in the instance that I'm referring to, when I saw beyond it, I saw a very clear picture of something happening. Why am I saying this? Not to be like, oh, I'm this or that, man. There are people so fucking far way ahead of me, this, that. I got nothing to say. But now that we all have this piece of technology in our hand, whenever we can in any way speak to something real that we've not spoken to, that we don't hear spoken to in a way that others can understand. I'm saying this because I know, I have faith in certain things, I have belief in certain things, and I know certain things. I know others have had this type of experience. I know that when I say something looks like, that the veil looks like wood grain or like fire, I know that others have had that experience, and that they know what I'm talking about. Because I've come upon it, and I've come upon it, and I've come upon it. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because if someone, you, comes upon this, there's one of two things. If you come upon this, there's one of two things. Either A, this has happened to you and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or B, when this will come upon you, and it might be tomorrow, it might be in a year, or it might be in 10 years, but you'll remember this. And I can't say why it's me speaking that you will remember, and not someone else, like someone else I might have watched and remember. But that's just how it goes. That's as far as I've gotten with it, you know. But I know today I have to say something. That's what I'm saying. So why am I here? I'm here to encourage I know you doing better in the future. Selfishly, from my standpoint, selfishly, I know you doing better in the future helps me now. And I know me now taking this risk and stepping out on a limb and having trust, like in the world, that I won't be like struck down for having said it as either a fool or a heretic or anything else. Like, I know that that helps you, and I know that you listening or relating helps me. It's the truth. But yeah, there were different ways that society is structured. There's different levels that Pythagoras spoke to in different ways. Same with Jesus. I don't know enough about Hindu to say about that. Same with Zoroaster. Though, well, yeah, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, and Zoroaster dealt with fire a lot and in different ways. But it's that common thread. And it's what's behind the rituals and behind the traditions. The rituals have power in so much as we grant them power, right? So, getting to the God of gods is getting to the ritual of rituals. And every time you get to a higher ritual, it makes all those other rituals beneath more or less obsolete, at least for you, right? The ritual of rituals would be to be free. But it would be the freedom or the free will that chose the collective freedom of knowing the truth, which in some sense isn't free. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to understand. And it's hard to experience. So, Pythagoras spoke to his disciples, his true disciples, differently than he spoke to the political class. There was this whole taxonomy of how he spoke to people and how his disciples, or how his information filtered down to the public. It was like a government. According to Iamblichus. It would be worth breaking down. And as someone seeking the truth, it's worth understanding, because it's worth understanding where I fit in. Because if there were someone or a group of someones who knew the truth, and that's the thing, there's a lot of secret groups, and there's a lot of people who know truths, and there's a lot of people who know mystical truths, never mind mathematical truths, rational truths, logical truths, all that kind of thing. There's a lot of selective societies, so to speak, open or closed, that know truths. Like, you could see some crazy shit. You could experience some crazy shit. You can be part of some crazy shit. You name it, it's there for you. Especially now, especially these days, it's there. I know it's there for me in certain ways. Like, I could go here, I could go there, I could do this, I could do that. If it weren't, I do though have a power bubble around me. But despite that, like, or besides that, like, there's a lot of things I could experience, or partake in, that would be mind blowing, either physically or spiritually, emotionally, psychically, however you want to say it. But one must always remember, the greatest lie is side by side with the greatest truth. It is that boundary of the yin yang between the white and the black. And I don't believe that the lie and the truth are equal or side by side. I don't believe, I know that like truth and evil are not opposite sides of the same coin. That's not true. That's a false doctrine. That's not the truth. That has been the active truth. That has been the pragmatic truth. But that is not the pragmaticistic truth. That is not the rational truth. It's the empirical truth, but not the rational truth. The good will prevail, and the good will prevail in one of two ways. The good will prevail in a massive act of destruction, much like the meteor or the volcano or the earthquake or whatever killed the dinosaurs. That was the prevailing of the good, so to speak. Because it was the extinguishing of a vast murderousness. Murderousness exists. It just doesn't exist like it did then, on a pound for pound basis. And it also allowed for what came after. And what came after? After a million years or whatever, compassion. Does a Tyrannosaurus Rex have the capacity for compassion? And this whole thing would save the sharks, right? Sharks versus porpoise. Well, am I going to save a shark or a porpoise if I have the chance? Well, I'm going to save the fucking porpoise, of course, right? But why are so many porpoise and seals and so on dying? Part of it's because as higher beings, they will find no peace in the ocean. And that's the truth. At least not today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today. And not for a while. It's the truth. And I can't say why. Except, go live in the ocean. I don't think you need to do it. I think you just need to think about it for, like, I don't know, 30 seconds. Go live in the ocean. Don't live in the ocean. I'm sorry I'm so like in a matter of fact about things. I'm not really. I'm just sometimes I have to wait till I get a little bit of that fire in me so that I can get shit out, right? I do want to help myself, but I want to help. I don't have a family and I don't have a career besides house painting, like in the stuff I talk about or I'm interested in. I'm obviously not good at a lot of things, but I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, and not everybody has that luxury. So, screwed as I am, I think, well, maybe I get a couple things right, and it's my obligation to share. So, anyway, I know I went on a lot of tangents, and I probably didn't get to a lot of what I wanted to, but that's okay. Um, Hope you're having a good day, and I hope you, me, all of us can have faith in each other's intentions. And for me, I really hope I can quit drinking booze and quit smoking butts. Despite the fact I like them quite a bit. I really, 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 really want to be a better version of me. So that's just an admission. I guess that pretty obvious. Really. Anyway, hope you're having a good day. Bye.